Hey y'all, and welcome to the Hillbilly Chicken Ranch. I am Susan, I'm your hostess, and today we're going to make a knockoff Mrs. Dash seasoning. Now, this is my first attempt at it, so we're going to try this out. But I do have some Mrs. Dash in my pantry, and I love this stuff. It calls for some ingredients that I don't have, and I went online, I looked up a recipe, and it's from morethanThursdays.com. And I'm actually changing their recipe. So we're going to use their recipe as a base, and then I'm going to add some ingredients. Mrs. Dash ingredients include dried onion, black pepper, parsley, celery seed, basil, bay, marjoram, oregano, savory thyme, mustard, cumin, rosemary, cayenne pepper, dried garlic, dried carrots, dried orange peel, dried tomato, lemon juice powder, citric acid, and oil of lemon. So it has a lot more ingredients than what we're going to use. So I have pulled some ingredients, and as I go through it, write down the amounts. I will try to remember to write down the amounts that I use and put that in the description box below. But the original recipe is a copycat from Mrs. Dash, and it's 3 tablespoons of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of basil, 1 tablespoon of dried parsley, 1 tablespoon of marjoram, 1 tablespoon of thyme, 1 tablespoon of sage, 1 tablespoon of mace, 1.5 tablespoon of cayenne pepper, or 1.5 teaspoons, whichever way you want to go. I do not have the marjoram. And I looked up online, and the substitute will be oregano. So I have some Mexican oregano that I'm going to use in its place. I am going to add some of my homemade tomato powder, some celery powder, some ground mustard, and I think it called for coriander. Yeah, it called for coriander, so I have some coriander powder, and I'm just going to add some of that into the mix. We're going to taste it and see if it needs any adjusting before this video is done. Okay, I've got a tablespoon and a 1.5 tablespoon, or 1.5 teaspoons, whichever way you want to call it. And I'm losing my voice for some reason all of a sudden. And I'm going to start with the 3 tablespoons of garlic powder. And I'm going to have to pour it into a dish. This is something I have on my list that I need to replace. So 3 tablespoons. And the rest of it's going back into the container. It calls for 1 tablespoon of onion powder. One tablespoon of black pepper. One tablespoon of basil, and I'm using sweet basil. This was either grown by me or I bought it at the Amish community, one of the two, or Ada's, one of the 3. And it's 1 tablespoon. And 1 tablespoon of the dried parsley. And I don't have the marjoram, but I do have oregano, so we're going to use the Mexican oregano in its place. Oh, I got to get the dry oxygen absorber out of the way. So we'll get that in there. One tablespoon of thyme. One tablespoon of sage. And 1 tablespoon of mace. Now, mace is one of those that I think would be an optional ingredient. If you wanted to leave it out, you can, because I know it's quite expensive. And 1½ teaspoons of cayenne. Now, my cayenne is a blend, actually, of jalapeno, cayenne, Tabasco, and banana peppers. So I'm not going to use near as much. And I'm actually going to go and pull out ½ teaspoon. And the reason I'm using ½ teaspoon is because it's such a blend of hot peppers that this is really, really spicy. And I don't want to overpower my mix. But you would use 1½ teaspoons of cayenne pepper if you have that. Now we're going to get into the ingredients that are not listed on my sheet. And I've already written down, so I'll have all that information in here of how much I plan on using of each of these ingredients. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of my homemade tomato powder. There is a video on how I make this. I do believe I have it in a video. If I don't, I will make sure that I do one this year. So 1 tablespoon of that. 1 teaspoon of brown mustard. And again, I've got to find a teaspoon. That's closer to 1.5 teaspoons that I put in there. And my celery powder is 1 tablespoon. And I dehydrated this myself. And I do believe I have a video on this. So 1 teaspoon of celery powder. And again, it would be an optional ingredient because celery does contain some salt, but it's a natural salt. And 1 teaspoon of coriander powder. And again, you know, you might want to go light on this. It can be very pungent. Okay, I've got all my ingredients in my NutriBullet cup. You can see all the nice layers, and it looks like it's a good ½ cup of the mix. I'm going to get this stuff out of the way, and we will mix this. This is going to get very loud for just a moment, and just to blend this up really good into a fine powder because I'm using this in a salt shaker. And it's going to go onto my dining room table, and we will be using this in place of salt from time to time. But if you didn't want to grind it up, it would be perfectly fine like it is. You just mix it by hand and put it in a jar and store it. And there is my powder. And I think I might need to go a little bit longer on the pulsing because I'm still seeing a few large pieces in there. And that looks really good right now. So I'm going to allow that to settle for just a moment. We're going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to get out a funnel. Okay, I'm going to get out a tablespoon, and we're going to spoon this into, this is a baby food jar that I've recently acquired. We're going to put some in that. Working with powder, and the powder has hot peppers and black pepper in it, so you kind of want to stand back. Pulled out a muck rag because I have a granite counter and I don't want this going everywhere. But we're going to tap this until it goes into the jar. And it's wanting to be stubborn. What you do when it's wanting to be stubborn, you grab a skewer or you grab a plastic straw, and that will help get that to go through the funnel. For some reason it was wanting to clog up on me. It might be that sage. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. We're going to put some into our funnel and try to get it into our salt shaker. So I'm going to do a little less at a time. A little bit more. All right. There it is in the salt shaker, and it has large holes in the top. And I'm going to finish this one off with whatever's remaining. Now, you'll notice I did not pack my salt shaker down, but the jar I will, if I need to, I will pack it down just a little bit. That's why I put the towel underneath there. All right. I would say we got about a half a cup of mix. So that is the Mrs. Dash mock, or I should say the mock Mrs. Dash. I'm going to taste it. I'm going to put some in my hand, get some water on my fingers so that we can taste test this. Adjust my camera just a little bit. Okay, it is spicy. So this is going to be a spicy mock to Mrs. Dash. The coriander and the mixed hot peppers I would cut back on the next time around, but it's not a bad flavor. It doesn't have the lemon flavor like the Mrs. Dash does. If you're opposed to the lemon flavor or you're allergic to citrus, this would be a good alternative for you. I will probably continue to use this. I've got quite a bit of it. I'm trying to get away from the store-bought mixed spices because they're so expensive, and you can mix them at home and they're so much cheaper. So y'all, this is a test run on this recipe, and as I said, I will cut back on the coriander and my mixed peppers. If I had cayenne, I'd leave it like it was, but I didn't. I thought a half teaspoon would be fine. I'll probably use a quarter teaspoon next time around. But other than that, it tastes really good. It's got a good flavor to it. So y'all try this recipe out. If you like it spicy, leave it like it is. You can always add more tomato to it. You want more of that tomato flavor. Adjust the recipe to make it your own. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you are fully blessed by this and that you learned something from my experiment.